in 1958. My mother was 7 years old when my grandfather was sent off to the Mississippi State Penitentiary for grand theft. He stole a cow. While he was away, Mama told me she endured a lot of mental abuse, and it played a lot on her psyche. And that mental abuse, the majority of the mental abuse came to the expense of the clothes that she wore. She didn't have any clothes. She didn't have any shoes. She didn't have nothing. My grandfather was a single parent. My great grandmother, Viola, was raising my mother, and she passed away when my mother was 6 years old. So my grandfather was all she had. Anyhow, when he came out in 61, she was just about to turn 11 years old. My mama told me when grandpapa knocked on the door and she heard his voice, she just broke down. And I'm talking about the jubilation was just unbearable for her. They came to Florida and she swore that she told me this and she lived up to it to her dying day, that she would never reside in the state of Mississippi again. 7 years later, she had me. And by the time I was 7 years old, I was taking that same kind of abuse in my neighborhood growing up where I grew up at in a ghetto in the sugarcane field called Belglade, Florida. And I learned early. I learned real early, again, that you had to go hard. If you didn't, you would get beat down to the pavement. Anyhow, my clothes was ragtag. Everything was ragtag, all hand-me-down. I remember one day I got off the school bus. I was in about the second grade, third grade or something, and I came up and some guys was on the side of the building and they were pop shot and they had already been killing me a lot about the things that I wore. You understand? They was joking on me so bad one day that it reduced me to tears. And I felt what my mama had told me years later when I got old enough and she made me understand these things. But after they got through bagging on me, I went to the back of the building where we stayed at and sat on the porch and I wept profusely. And this played a part on me to where I wanted to get up and fight back. This turned me into a juggernaut when it came to playing the dozens in my neighborhood. I even went to the expense of making a comedy tape one time in the neighborhood that almost got me killed. I couldn't beat this guy. And we used to have these big boom boxes walking around and you could just pop a tape in and mash record. And I started joking. I started joking. And the people in the background while I was joking, I had a live audience, about maybe like 20 or 30 people. And the tape got so popular that the guy confronted me and he wanted to put hands on me about that. He wanted to do something physically to me or whatever, but I grew into that mode of being a jokester. And people in the town that I came from, and I think I want to name drop now because it's out of respect. Big Elijah was one of the greatest comedians I ever knew. Lee Bush, he was one of the greatest comedians I ever knew. Craig Swoop, he in prison doing life right now. He one of the greatest comedians I ever knew. And all these people that I saw that was defending themselves when it came to joking, it was awesome. And I just knew that from every day when people ask me, how come I'm flashy? They ask me, how come you gotta be smelling so good when you go somewhere? Why you just can't be normal and this and that? Because in my mind, I think about what my mom went through. In my mind, I think about the things that me and my sisters and my brothers had to endure before we got up some size and we was able to fend for ourselves. So I wanted to come on and say, being a product of your environment does not mean that it has to be negativity. It could be positive because I had a hell of a life thus far. I'm glad I'm able to share this. And I love looking good. I love smelling good. I like to spray cologne all in my beard. I like to do that. You understand? Because ain't nobody playing the dozens when you're looking good. You understand?